Haiti borders with the Dominican.
Her name is Serena Buffalino. They call her Mrs. B, and her class always begins with a pledge.
Something local, something global. Haiti.
They're words that carry
Yes.
weight here. Helping yourself means helping others, giving back, here and a world away in Haiti.
And nobody's helping them, except for people like us.
It was through her the class learned of Haiti, of the nearly 1 million orphans, many with no school, no support, no Mrs. B in their lives.
They could not wrap their head around that.
Mrs. B's students are among Toronto's most at risk. Their challenges vary from emotional and behavioral difficulties to learning disabilities. Their trauma so severe they can't function in a regular school setting, and we aren't allowed to show most of their classmates.
For most of the kids, most of society has turned them away. And in this classroom, they're accepted. They're accepted no matter what for who they are.
Take Yolanda. She came here last year so burdened and withdrawn, she would often fall silent, sometimes for days on end. It was, she says, Mrs. B's patience, her quiet encouragement, that saved her.
She actually saves people's lives from dangers.
And perhaps that's why these marginalized kids feel such a kinship with the orphans of Haiti, and why they were moved to act.
And so when Yolanda and Jackie and Patrick said, well, Miss B, we need to build them a school.
Build a school, no easy task. They started out raising money. They sold samosas, washed cars, screened movies, you name it. And in just a few months, this little class raised $20,000. So much, it's not just a one-room schoolhouse they can build, but a full 3-story school. And so Mrs. B set off on a journey she'd dreamed of, up into the dusty mountains above Port-au-Prince to a town called Canaan. It's home to thousands of earthquake refugees who live with no running water, no electricity, and no school, until now. The first step was a temporary school. It's up and running. 53 students already in uniform. The permanent school for 250 is growing from its foundations.
It makes me want to cry because she just makes me feel so awed, and I'm very proud of her.
All of this because of a handful of students back in Canada, and Mrs. B, the teacher who believed in them.
These are for you.
At another fundraiser, a special tribute to the students, accepted by someone who, without Mrs. B, might not be here.
They believe in me and I believe in them, and together we not only change our lives, but we change the world around us.
For inspiring great things and seeing the potential in everyone, Serena Buffalino is this week's Everyday Hero.
Good morning, bonjour, ni hao, hola, bienvenue, wan ying, bienvenidos, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Gem Hunter Stories. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. And each and every week, I get the wonderful opportunity to take you on a journey to places that you've never been before, to stories that you've never heard before. Each week, I get to take you on a mental, physical, and spiritual adventure into the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry. Because it's all about the stories. The purpose of this show is to get you to understand that some of the same characteristics, some of the same concepts that we so praise about gemstones and precious metals and jewelry throughout the ages, those stories, I believe that those stories can be used as a template, as an inception point, as a bridge to help us discover the value of our own stories, of who we are as people. I want to first say good morning to all my friends and family in France. Today is Bon Fête Nationale. Bon Fête Nationale. This is their Independence Day, July 14th. Some people call it Bastille Day. This was the beginning of the French Revolution, where the people of France got tired of the monarchy of Louis XVI. And of course, we all know Queen Marie Antoinette. And they stormed the castle of Bastille was a prison. They stormed Bastille, they burnt it, and today is there. So you don't say in France, happy Bastille Day, you say Bon Fête Nationale. So you tell someone who is French, say that to them, and they'll say, merci beaucoup. And it's interesting, as I began to think about today, it's interesting that the French Revolution, the thing that ended the monarchy of France, and it kind of caused a chain reaction, really was about what we're going to talk about today, which is gold. Gold is the quintessential example of the connections, of the importance and the power of stories. When you begin to understand what gold is, and more importantly, what gold has done to people throughout the whole history of mankind, then you'll begin to really see the importance of understanding, first of all, stories, but understand how stories relate to you. So first, let's start with the science. Gold is this chemical symbol for gold is AU, not AG. AG, for those of you who are into science, AG is silver. Gold is AU, from the Latin aurorum, which is the sun. Gold has 79 protons, 79 electrons. Gold is the most noble of all the metals, of all the noble. When you say noble in chemistry, which means it's pretty much, it doesn't react with anything. Think of it as noble. I am the king. I am the queen. I don't react with everybody else. So gold is the most noble of all the noble metals. It's a transition metal, sits right in the middle of the periodic table. 79 protons and electrons, gold, AU. On the left side of it, is platinum, 78 pt, and on the right side is mercury. There are 118 elements in the known universe, 118 elements, and gold is the only one that does what it does to people, to civilization. You have to understand, when I first started learning gemology, the thing that made me understand that gemstones and precious metals was so much more than just something that you put on your neck or something that you put on your fingers or your ears is gold. First of all, you have to understand that gold does not come from this earth. That's the first thing that makes it special. It doesn't come from this earth. Gold comes from space. Let me say that again. Gold comes from space. And not even this. This is the Milky Way. Much further than that, gold, that ring that you have, everybody take a second to look at that ring that you have on your finger, if it's gold. Your earrings, your necklace, your bracelet, all those things, all those pieces of jewelry that have gold, what you are holding in your hand, on your neck, on your ears, is the beginning of the universe, the beginning of time. The way gold was produced, and not to get into the deep physical physics of it, but gold was created from an explosion of a supernova. When a sun gets so condensed that it explodes. The Big Bang, gold came, there was like 9 different epochs of the Big Bang, which eventually made galaxies, but that's further on. But gold was maybe the second or third epoch. I'm talking about when the concept of positive and negative came together. That's when it started. Gold was created from there. And then from that explosion, created dust. And of that dust started congealing, making into the galaxies, making into our planet. So gold, what you have on your fingers, is something that was here from the beginning of time. Which is really interesting, because even though some of us in the 21st century don't realize that, the Incas knew it. The Incas called gold the sweat of the sun. And we'll go into that later on. The sweater of the sun. So you have to understand that gold comes from the beginning of the universe. Gold is a shiny yellow metal, which is different than any other metal in the periodic table. Most metals are either gray or silverous, but gold is yellow. Gold is a reddish yellow color. And when you begin to understand the story of it, yellow for the Egyptian cultures, this Egyptian civilization, yellow was the color that gods wore. When you looked at Egyptian their Egyptian gods, they would always depict their gods in yellow. Gold has been around for, again, the beginning of the earth. I just wanted you to think about that for a second. That ring on your hand comes from the beginning of the universe, and the very beginnings, the origins of earth, because it's a dense metal. When it came either through the dust that congealed in the beginning of the universe, or the meteors that hit the earth while the earth was forming, gold, being a heavy metal, sunk into the core. So all the gold that has ever existed on the planet is still here. Gold is indestructible. For all intents and purposes, gold is indestructible. Gold, if you've gone to, I'm from New York, I live in Chicago. So if you go to the Museum of Natural History, or you go to the Field Museum, the gold that you see that King Tut had 4,000 years ago, the gold of his mask is still as much gold as it was 4,000 2,000 years ago. King Tut, as most of us know, King Tut was buried in 3 different coffins. The first coffin, the first had, it was stone, and then it had a layer of gold. The second layer was made up of solid gold. They're talking about 248 pounds of gold, because for their culture, wearing gold, having gold in your possession meant that you were royalty automatically. Obviously, the normal, regular people didn't have gold. The third coffin was also covered in gold and precious gems. And then the mask of King Tutankhamun, King Tut, was a face mask simulating not only his face, but their god Osiris, the god of the dead. This mask weighs 25 pounds. That was the relationship that the Egyptians had with gold. So reason why I say that is because gold is based on a story. Think about it. Gold, 25, even today, 50% of all the gold, let's back up. All the gold on the planet would equal out to a cube, about 71 feet on all sides. This is gold. I know it's not as fancy. Again, let's go back to if your man said, baby, I bought you a gold ring. Really, honey? Oh, thank you so much. And if he gave you this molecular structure, you're like, what's that? Baby, that's gold. This is what gold is. This is what gold is in its rough form. So again, gold in the beginning, in the earlier thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, gold was found in nuggets. So there was plenty of gold in Egypt. And if they didn't have gold right there in Egypt, and I'm thinking about Cleopatra in Alexandria, the gold came from Africa. So the Europeans' understanding of gold came from what they saw that the Egyptians were using with gold. So gold is dense. Gold, one of the things that makes gold so special is that gold is malleable. Meaning you can take gold and hammer it out into a flat sheet. So my ring is close to an ounce of gold. Well, not that close, but close to an ounce of gold. And if you took this ring, you could flatten this ring out into something covering a whole entire wall. Just this much of gold. Gold is the most malleable of all the metals. You can do anything with gold. Gold is ductile, which means that you can take gold and make it into a very, very fine wire, thinner than your hair. We're talking about nanometers, and literally stretch it out. This much gold would equal out to maybe a mile. And the ancient people knew that. Yes, they had silver. Yes, I'm talking about Egypt. Yes, they had silver. Yes, they had copper. But when they understood, when they looked at gold, you were talking about something that is part of their culture, part of who they were. So in 1922, when I think his name was Harold Carter, the archaeologist discovered King Tut's tomb. He found a place where there in the whole tomb there was gold. As I said, 50% of gold, all the gold on the planet still exists. It's either on rings, on bracelets, in museums, on the bottom floor of the ocean. Gold is becoming less and less. It's harder to find gold on the surface of the earth because we've been mining gold for thousands of years. But they're saying that there's almost 400 trillion tons of gold. I'm sorry, basically 100 million tons of gold in the ocean. And that gold, if they were ever able to mine it from the ocean, would equal out to $700 trillion. In fact, this morning I was looking at the price of gold. Right now, gold is going for $1,817 an ounce. $1,817 an ounce. When I first started in gemology, gold was $300 an ounce. And all of that, everything that we know about gold is based on a story. A story, not only a story you heard yesterday or 2 weeks ago or 20 years ago, a story that started hundreds, thousands of years ago. We are basing our belief, our understanding, our love, our desire of gold is based on something that they were doing 3,000, 4,000 years ago. Because Cleopatra believed in gold. King Tut believed in gold. The Egyptian civilization, which was one of the first earliest civilizations, gold was something that they used. It was something that they revered. And the reason why you're hearing the excitement in my voice about gold is because when you begin to understand what gold is, it's absolutely amazing. Cleopatra's power came from gold and emeralds. Again, we talked about what emeralds were back in the ancient period, but gold, although emeralds has lost some of its luster, pun intended. But gold still, as you can see from the price of gold, is still $1,817 an ounce. Just a few months ago, it was up to $2,000 an ounce. And that's just because of what we believe it is. Gold is based on what we believe it is. Gold that's really the value. 50% of it is jewelry. About maybe 40% of it is used for investment purposes. Only 10% of gold has industrial purposes. You know, you can make gold shields for astronauts. Gold is used, those of you who are walking around with gold in your mouth, for dentistry purposes. Gold is sometimes used in medicine. But for the highest percentage of gold uses is in jewelry, is in adornment, is because of what gold makes you feel. And that is where you begin to understand the magic of gold. There's, and I know that this is July, for those of you who are born in July and this is your month, rubies. We will come back to rubies because the stories, the understanding that the power of the stories of rubies come from the beginning, the origin stories that you get from gold. One of the first stories that amazed me about gold, really not so much with Egyptian gold, although we talked about Julius Caesar and Cleopatra, but Columbus. Yeah, Columbus. That person that we used to celebrate every month. Columbus, his whole purpose of coming to the new world, the discovery of the new world is based on gold. Slavery in the new world was based on the need for gold. So when Columbus came, some of you guys don't know, we all celebrated Columbus and he discovered America and then the world was round. No, Columbus knew that the world was round. Everybody knew the world was round in the 15th century. Everybody knew. And that wasn't now. They knew about the world being round in the 2nd century. But what the mistake that Columbus made as he was trying to find a new route to the China, to the Indies, is that he thought the world was smaller than it really was. His math was wrong as far as the circumference of the earth. And he certainly didn't figure that there was this big giant landmass. Oh, I don't know, what's it called? North America and South America. He had no idea that landmass was in the middle of his journey. If he kept going west, he figured he'd hit China. But the interesting thing about, I started to say Cleopatra, about Columbus is how it happened. Christopher Columbus was a young man. He was Genoese, and he had heard, he was a navigator, as a lot of people who was Genoese in those days were. He basically started working his life on the sea, and he became a really great navigator. He had gotten almost killed on a ship in war. He swam back to shore. He got on another ship, and he was known as one of the greatest navigators of his time. He was the Michael Jordan of navigation. And he figured out in his head the way for him to get rich would be to find gold. Remember, in Europe, everybody got paid in gold. Gold was the currency. And that's another interesting thing about gold. Of all the 118 elements in the periodic table, known elements in the universe, there's only 2 metals that are really set up to be money. Either you have elements like sodium. You can't have sodium. Sodium is wonderful. Sodium is plentiful, but sodium will explode in your hand based on water temperature, or water vapor. You can't use uranium because nobody wants to walk around and be radioactive and die. Ask Madame Marie Curie. People used to carry in the early 19th century when radon and radium became popular. People put radium in their foods and stuff and carried. And of course, they got sick and cancers, things of this. But gold, because it's a completely stable metal. It's an inert metal. Most acids do not react to gold. So imagine if we knew that in the 19th century, imagine what the what the Egyptians felt about it. So let's go back to Columbus. When Columbus went to all the monarchs in Europe. King Henry, I forgot the other king of France, King Charles. And they all said, no. Because what Columbus wanted for his finding gold, he literally wanted to become a knight. He wanted the monarchs to make him a knight. He wanted to be admiral of the ocean. Imagine that, admiral of the ocean. I would love to be captain of Jackson Park Harbor, which is a little harbor in Chicago, but he wanted to be admiral of the ocean. He wanted them to make him viceroy, which is in Francais, Roy, R-O-I, is king. So a viceroy was basically a semi-king. He wanted to be viceroy of whatever area that he conquered, and he wanted a 10% cut of all the gold he found. And of course, everybody told him, no, you're crazy. I don't want to. No, absolutely, get out. And he went to Isabella and Ferdinand at first, and they told him, no, we don't, that's not going to work for us. But Isabella, wanting Spain to become a dynasty, he said, well, maybe he can do. So basically, they didn't really like what Columbus was doing. Columbus was kind of like a con man in a way. He was good, but he's a con man. And they knew that. So they were eventually they told him no. And then eventually they said, all right, come on back. And they gave him 3 little ships. And you guys know the name of the ships: the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Small ships. Columbus's first trip to the New World. He had about 80 guys. And he was traveling across the ocean, trying to reach the new route. And one of the first things you need to understand about the power of gold, and I said this before, and I want you to understand, ships back in those days weren't ships like we have today. They didn't have bathrooms. They didn't have turn down linen service. They didn't have any of that. So you had 80 guys on a ship. The food was bad. Nobody was brushing their teeth. There was no deodorant, none of that. No bathroom. So, buckets, you know. The reason why in the Marine Corps and the Naval Services, you call the bathroom the head, because the hole in the ship was in the front of the ship, the head. But yet, despite all that, they still wanted to find gold. When you understand gold, you understand that gold is a spiritual thing. People did things for gold. They had to have gold. This metal, this element, an element is something that cannot be broken down to anything else. This will exist forever. That's what you're wearing. You are wearing this ring. If I put this ring down on this table, and this table, this whole building, it may deteriorate, but this gold would still be there in the exact same condition that it is today. That's what moves people when you understand what they did for gold. So here's Columbus trying to get across the ocean. Obviously, it took him a lot longer than he thought, because he thought he had to go a shorter distance. When he reached Hispaniola, which is Dominican Republic in Haiti, and again, let's say a blessing to and a prayer to all the people in Haiti going through the things that they're going through right now. So when Columbus got there, he didn't find any gold. He didn't find any gold at all. There were over 250 Tainoan Indians there. And he asked them, where's the gold? Because some of them had like maybe little pieces or trinkets on their nose and their ears. And he said, there got to be more gold. And more importantly, when you look at Columbus's diary, which I had the opportunity to see once, and he arrived in the 12th of October. He arrived the 12th of October, and his second entry on the 13th was, I have not found any gold, but there's people of color, black people, dark-skinned people there. So therefore, gold can not be that far behind, because he got that story from the Portuguese. When the Portuguese started traveling around the Horn, the widest western part of Africa, they got to the countries like Sierra Leone, in the Ivory Coast, in Ghana. And when you move from northern Africa, Egypt, and you come around to the lower parts of the western aspects of Africa, you see people who look more like me. So Columbus, in his mind, said that there was a connection between black people or people of color and gold. Wherever you found somebody that looked like me, there would be gold. How wonderful would that concept be in real life? This would be my bedroom. So when he got there, there was no gold. And because he basically conned his way into getting the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, he had to come back. He couldn't come back empty-handed, because they gave him a loan. It was like taking a loan from a loan shark. So he had to decide to do something. And we'll talk about exactly what he had to do when we come back from our sponsors.
Life is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been shown that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. We'll match you with the perfect buddy. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
We're offering you a free membership, so please sign up today. Share this with your friends and family, and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
All right, we are back talking about the world's most loved metal, gold. So back to Columbus. So Columbus couldn't go back empty-handed because he promised, he basically signed his soul to the devil, because you have to understand that Queen Isabella, remember the stories that you've heard about the Spanish Inquisition? Well, Spanish Inquisition, she was the one that started the Spanish Inquisition. She was the one, she was devoutly Catholic, and so was Columbus. And that's one of the reasons why they connected. So Columbus figured that if he couldn't come back with gold, he found gold. He didn't find any gold. He found black people, people of color. He found tobacco and some other things, some fruits and different things that grow in the island. So he said, if I can't come back with gold, then at least let me come back with potential converts to Christianity, to becoming Catholic. And Isabella had in her head, she was real special. I can do a whole week show on her. One of the things that she fervently believed, that if I really want gold, but if you can't find gold, then I can take some of these souls, of course, savages, and convert them to Catholicism. That when Jesus came down, this is her literally quotes from it, when Jesus comes back to earth, then he would grant her a higher level of a higher status, because of all the souls that she had brought to Catholicism. And then as time went on and she began to realize that she really needed gold in order to do what she wanted to do, she was just like, okay, well, forget about the Catholicism part. Let's just use them for labor. So I say this not to make gold, and I tell people all the time, I'm never going to tell people not to buy gold. I just want you to understand two things: where gold comes from, why do we believe in gold, and how can we use the concept of gold to empower our own lives. Again, let me say that gold is a story that was told to us 7,000 years ago. Some of you guys were around then. I was born about 5,000 years ago. but that was the story that we were told. So when those guys got on the ship, when Columbus came to the new world and didn't find what he wanted, he wasn't daunted at all, because what are we talking about? We're talking about gold. As the Egyptians believed, the flesh of gods, the flesh of their gods was gold. In fact, their gods, Isis, Osiris, their bones was made out of silver, but their flesh was made out of gold. So that thought, that belief, that value system that the Egyptians had moved on to the Spaniards, to the Portuguese, to everybody, to the Romans. They believed that gold gave them magical powers. And why wouldn't they? Think back. If you had a substance that was indestructible, gold is pretty much indestructible because it is an element. It is made out of, you can no more destroy gold than you can destroy the sun. The molecules would still be there. In fact, gold, the need for gold created a whole science called chemistry. But before that, it was called what? Alchemy. And not just regular people, not only did regular people do alchemy, but great minds. Newton, besides, when he wasn't busy discovering or inventing calculus and the different laws of the universe, he was an alchemist. He believed that gold, if you took a basic metal like lead, you could take that and make that into gold. And he spent a huge amount of his life. In fact, when he was going through the English pandemic, it was the bubonic plague, when he had to take that rest because the school he wanted to go to was closed, just like nowadays was closed due to the bubonic plague. One of the things that he did was try to create gold. Today, gold can be made. It's called neutron bombardment. You have to, the same way it was created in the Big Bang, neutrons have to come together, slam together. So when you go to a particle bombardment chamber, like they have right here in the United States, I can't think of it, but in Switzerland, they have a bombardment, nuclear reaction that literally bombards gold or any metal with neutrons. It makes it into gold, but of course it's very small amounts. So when in the efforts to get gold, they needed free labor. And where did the free labor come from? The enslavement of Africans. Not because there wasn't people there. Remember I said that when Columbus came to Hispaniola, there was a population of 200,000 people there who literally opened their arms to Columbus. Oh, come. But they had no need. No, gold was nothing for them. They were like, we don't have none. The little pieces of gold I got from my Uncle Louis from somewhere else. Columbus didn't believe that. He was enraged. He when he went back to Spain, because he had to, let Isabella and Ferdinand know what was up, especially Ferdinand. Ferdinand's last order to Columbus was get gold. Humanely as possible. This is a quote. Humanely as possible, but at all costs, get gold. So he had to go back and say, hey, I didn't get what I wanted. It's kind of like going back to the mob to say, hey, I don't have your money. Can you take these people in just kind of like an IOU? And Isabella said, yeah, okay. So when he came back to Hispaniola, he left his brothers there for 2 years. He came back. That population of 250,000 people dwindled down to maybe 2,000 in 2 years, because they worked them to death. And where did they learn how to do that? From the Romans. Because Spain used to have gold mines until the Romans depleted them. And where did the Romans learn how to mine for gold? They learned it from the Egyptians. In fact, many of the processes that are still being used in obtaining gold, we learned from the Egyptians. So the thing about gold that keeps resonating in my mind is that how do people do all these things for this metal? You can't even build buildings with this. This is too soft. 18 karat, 24 karat gold is pure gold. 18 karat gold, for those of you who don't know, is 75% gold. 14 karat gold is basically 58.3% gold. And then it goes down from there. So gold is a very soft metal. The hardness of gold is 2.5 to 3. Very soft metal. But yet, it changes people's lives. It tricked me out to understand how many civilizations were created and, more importantly, destroyed because of this metal. Gold is the most beautiful, the most amazing, the most incredible, and the most dangerous metal known to mankind. Nothing ever has more lives have been destroyed. More millions of people have been destroyed from this metal, from this element. So what can you do? How does that relate to you? So if gold is based on a story, then what is the story that you're telling yourself? What is the story that you need to believe to start that new business, to lose weight, to do what you want to do in your life? Because if it's the power of a story, if gold is basically a metal that is two qualities, that is malleable, can be beaten down, and is ductile, it can be stretched out. How is that any different than what you do every day? Especially moms. You're being beaten down by all the things, family, job, work. You're being beaten down every day. You're malleable. You're being stretched. You need a 36-hour day. Some of you Barbara needs a 48-hour day. So how is the difference between you and gold? The value of gold as an appraiser, the value of gold at $1,817 per ounce is based on what we believe it is. And when you believe it, when you believe in something, nothing's going to stop you. Gold proves that. Gold proves that you can have something beautiful, rare, and it could be found anywhere in the world. People never say, where's this gold from? Africa, Russia, North America, South America, Asia, Australia. We'll talk about in later episodes, we'll talk about the California gold rush. We'll talk about the Australian gold rush. In the California gold rush, the man, Johannes Sutter, where the gold was found on, he died broke. He literally had the land. When gold was found in 1848, he literally owned the land. He was on the verge of being the richest landowner in California. He had worked his way up from being a poor man in Europe, came to this country, bought land, had farmland, animals, different horses, a mill. And this metal destroyed him. It destroyed him. We'll talk about the Australian gold rush, the guy who went to the California gold rush, worked it for 12, 15 hours a day for 2 years, came back. He lived in Australia, came back absolutely broke. He had nothing left but his clothes on his back and his pick and his shovel. And when he got off the boat and looked around, he realized that the land masses that he saw in California, the topography of the land, the type of soil that he saw in California was exactly what he was looking at right in Australia. And from that, the Australian gold rush happened. Gold is a magical metal. Not so much just the metal itself, but what the metal can do, what the metal makes you believe. After Columbus opened up the world to Europe, the Portuguese started coming. A man named Pizarro, this is the real story, a man named Francisco Pizarro, who was like basically a criminal. He was an illiterate bastard who had no problems. He was like, he would have been in a gang, today's mentality. He would have been in somebody's gang. He would have been in a mob. So when he had the opportunity to see if he could find gold, that he can do a better job than what Columbus did, he went for it. He went to, instead of going to North America or Hispaniola, he went further down. He went to South America. And again, the thing that gets me is everything that they had to do before they even got to the gold. That's the real power of it. You got on a ship. It took 3 months to get there. Once you got on the ship, off the ship, and you landed wherever you had to land, you had to fight the weather. Think about Brazil in the summertime. You had to fight the indigenous people that lived there. You had to fight. Half his crew got killed by animals and snakes and all kinds of bugs that live in the Amazon. He had to climb hills. He had to fight the indigenous tribes. And then once he climbed, this was in the Andes Mountains. Once he got to the top of the Andes Mountains, him and about 250 guys, horses, horses, cannons, things like this. 250 guys, exhausted, tired. They had gone through all that. And the thing that kept them going was gold. Just the thought of holding this in their hand. The fantasy, the stories of gold kept them going so much that no matter what they had to go through, they was going to go, because just the promise of obtaining the flesh of gods. When Pizarro looked down on the embankment and saw an encampment of 80,000 Inca warriors, literally, he just saw a sea of white because they had tents. He just saw a sea of white. His crew was like, no, we got to go. We can't deal with that. Imagine you're in a foreign country. You're tired. You're hungry. You're dealing with all the elements. You come up on this encampment of 80,000. You see tents as far as the eye can see. Warriors. And the belief of gold was so powerful. They were like, okay. Pizarro was like, we can do this. We could do that. He was a great leader. He might have had some bad character, but he was a great leader. And he inspired his men. He reminded his men of what would happen to their lives if you could just obtain this. Just this. The promise of gold to change your life. The promise of gold makes you change your whole universe. You would come back and be the new king and queen or Lisa Noble because you had this. So Pizarro said, yeah, okay, cool. We're going to do this. He went down, him and his crew went down the hill to meet up with the great Inca, his name was Atahualpa, which actually means the great Inca. And he captured Atahualpa, killed thousands of his people. In fact, let me start out. The Inca civilization had 3.5 million people there. Gold was everywhere. Gold. The Spaniards were going crazy because everybody had gold. They fought wars all the time. And what they would do sometimes is when they caught somebody, they captured somebody, killed them, they would take off their heads, flip it over, take all the brains and everything else out, laid it with gold, and then use that gold, their brain, their enemy's skull, as a drinking cup. Voila. That's how much gold the Incas had. So Atahualpa said to them, knowing he was a very wise king and emperor, he said, okay, You guys obviously like gold. Look at you. You're going crazy over gold. Tell you what I'm going to do. We will give you gold. They were in a room 17 by 22, about 9 feet tall. Atahualpa was an unusually tall person for his culture. He stood on his tippy toes, which they said about, Regent made a line that was maybe 9 feet high. And he said, I will fill this whole room up with gold. And you have to understand, gold, they didn't have Caterpillar trucks and Timberland boots. You dug it by hand. You dug holes in the ground that was 30 and 40, 60 feet deep. You climbed in it. One man hole where there was no lights, no electricity. You used candle and people would die all the time. He said that I will fill up this room with gold. And when they figured out that the gold they had equaled out to about 20 years of gold production. And at the end of all that, when they brought them all that, the Spaniards still killed them. They came in November 1532, and by August of 1533, 3.5 million people, most of them was decimated because they worked them to death. That is the power of gold. So what I want you to get out of today is first understanding, what is your goal? What is gold, G-O-L-D? What is your goal? Who are you? Are you gold? And if that goal, if you are gold, if your dream of what you want to be, if that person that you love in your life, if you say that that person is gold, then you have to understand what gold is. What are you willing to do for gold? Because the whole history of mankind revolving gold means that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to obtain this, to get this, because that's what it means. Again, as always, my name is Barry B. Mixon. I am a gemological storyteller. And what I want you to do at some point in your day, your week, until the next time we meet, is to take time to discover the value of your own stories. Au revoir. See you next time.